Double day to current day. This is Vintage Baseball Rewind, where we bring you five things every baseball fan should know what happened on December 22nd. On today's show, we got Connie Mack, who maybe wasn't such a gentleman. We have Lefty has a birthday, the Red Sox front office debacle in 79. Shane Bloom, can you hear us? And John Rucker offends virtually everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Fenway Park.
At Mark Spidrich now. Each time he gets the ball back, you'll see him mumble a couple of words to the ball.
The first man ever to pitch 5 career no-hitters. Catch a ball, Joe.
I don't believe what I just saw.
And it's another chance for Mitchell, and he makes a bare-handed catch. Ricky goes, a pitch hit, and he's going to have it. Leaps high in the air, and he's got it. An incredible catch by the kid.
And let it be said that number 8, Cal Ripken Jr., has reached the unreachable star.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we invite you to rise.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Tom Hannon from Tom's Vintage Baseball, where we bring you Voices of Baseball. I'm joined today by Matt Musico from MLB Daily Dingers. How's it going today, Matt?
I'm good, Tom. I'm trying to stay warm. Thinking about spring training keeps me a little bit warmer, but not too much these days.
Yeah, we're just a few days away from Christmas. And personally, I'm hoping for the Red Sox to make a big signing for a Christmas present, but I'm not super optimistic.
You got a couple. You got a new closer, you got a new outfielder, but you guys could use a little bit more. That's for sure. Because
the trivia question, I'm starting to wonder when the next time the Red Sox are going to win a World Series. It might be a long time, even though I know they got 4 in the last this century, but still.
Yeah, that'll hold you over for a little bit, but only for so long too. So,
yeah, it's true. And 2004 was an amazing one, and the other 3 were kind of icing on the. They weren't the same. 2004 will always be something different, but yeah, for sure. When you have something like that. It's a great feeling. They've had a lot of success, but you're also concerned about where they are. So,
yeah, definitely.
And the Mets are in the total opposite of the Red Sox, where they're just spending. What's their payroll now? Is it going to be close to $400 million?
Well, with the luxury tax, yeah, it's going to be over. I think right now, what the last estimate I saw was around like 345, and then with probably about an $80 million luxury tax penalty. Probably pushes it to around like 420 or something like that. So clearly, Steve Cohen tax means nothing to Steve Cohen, which all Mets fans are grateful for.
I think that if John Henry was doing that, I would be super excited.
Yeah, it's hard not to be excited about it. You know who else is excited about it? Scott Boras. He loves it.
Yeah, he has an express train to Cohen right now, and he's just like, hey, look who I got. What next guy can get 20, 30, $40 million?
Yeah, do you feel like it was a coincidence that the Mets made a very, very late entry into the Carlos Correa sweepstakes right before he signed with the Giants? It's like the best bargaining chip you could have. Like, well, the Mets are interested, and then that'll motivate anyone to get a deal done if they really want that player.
Yeah, and if there was a position outside of a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball that you'd want to play, it would be shortstop right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
eight of the top 10 shortstops all have 10 plus years at 300 million. I've never seen a position dominate an off season like that position has this year.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, like, wow, this shortstop class is really young, elite, a lot of really great players. They got paid like it, that's for sure.
Yeah, they got paid, it is one of the interesting things that they have done. Is they flattened it though. So all the years did was they just lowered the average annual contract and gave them extra years. Instead of giving them 40 million a year, they gave them 30 or 32 or something along those lines, and then they gave them an extra couple of years at the end, assuming that the luxury tax is going to go, the cap will go up over time, and money will because money's been worth less every year. So you have to assume that's what they're thinking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
On to the trivia. What American League charter franchise was the first charter member to was the last charter member to win a pennant, and then also the last charter member to win a World Series?
All right. Well, let's get started. So born on December 22nd, 1862 in East Brookfield, Massachusetts, was player, manager, scout, general manager, and owner Cornelius MacGillicuddy, or as we know him, Connie Mack. He did it all. For more than a century, he owned and managed the Philadelphia A's, which was nearly their entire existence. He built 2 dynasties that won a total of 5 World Series titles. Mack was often described as the grand old gentleman of the game, but he wasn't above stretching the rules to get a competitive advantage. He was rumored to have kept frozen baseballs handy to insert them into the game when his pitchers were on the mound. He also employed a special coach who stationed himself in center field at Shibe Park to steal signs from opposing teams. Connie Mack pieced together a tremendous baseball team in the first decade of the 20th century, built in large part around his famous $100,000 infield. At the time, Mack claimed that even that lofty dollar amount would not pry the 4-star players away from him. In 1911, John Stuffy McInnis was switched to first base to replace the aging Harry Davis, a fine player. But McInnis, who earned his nickname because he had the right stuff as a young ball player in Boston, joined Eddie Collins, Jack Barry, and Frank Baker to form the greatest infield of the era. His A's from 1929 to 1931 had a team second to none, which featured Jimmy Fox, Mickey Cochran, Al Simmons, Lefty Grove, George Earnshaw, Rube Wahlberg, and Jack Quinn. Mack holds the all-time record for most games managed with 7755, most games won with 3,731 wins, and most games lost, 3,814 losses. His record of 50 years managing one team and 53 years overall will most likely never be broken, which is just a ridiculous amount of longevity from someone.
Absolutely. And the thing that sticks out for me in here, beyond all the records and the teams, was what he did to win. It was no different then than it is now. And people get so upset when they say a player cheated, but cheating has been in baseball since it started.
Yeah, and, exactly. In different forms.
Yeah. I mean, he may not have had a trash can, but he was still stealing signs. So we jump ahead to December 22nd, 1944, future Hall of Famer Steve Carlton. He's born in Miami, Florida. Rivaling Tom Seaver as the finest pitcher of the 70s, Carlton won the NL Cy Young Award in 72 and 77 before capturing another 2 trophies during the early portion of the 80s. One of the greatest left-handed hurlers in the history of the game, Carlton trails only Warren Spahn in victories for a southpaw with 329. He also ranks 4th on the all-time strikeout list with 4,136, and he was the first pitcher to win 4 Cy Young Awards. Lefty, as he came to be known, surpassed 20 victories on 6 separate occasions, winning at least 16 games 4 other times. Over an 18-year stretch, beginning in 67, he failed to post at least 13 victories just one time. During that same period, he also finished with an ERA under 3, a total of 8 times. He struck out more than 200 batters 8 times and threw at least 250 innings 13 times. Carlton remains the last National League pitcher to compile as many as 25 victories in a season, as well as the last pitcher from any team to throw more than 300 innings in a season.
Definition of a workhorse. I mean, even with how badly those Phillies teams were, he was always still just rising to the top. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, he was amazing. And that year when he went 27-9, was it 27-9? And he dominated for a team that won 59 games.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like he had like just about half of their wins just himself. It's like ridiculous. All right, so we'll move ahead to December 22nd, 1980. The Boston Red Sox mail Fred Lynn and Carlton Fisk their new contracts 2 days after the basic agreement's December 20th deadline. Boston's blunder makes their all-stars eligible for free agency. Fisk will land in Chicago after a legal battle and complete a Hall of Fame career over the next decade plus. Lynn, on the other hand, will end up traded to California with Rick Burleson and play 11 more seasons. However, he'll never have the impact that he did in Boston. This was a dark era in Boston, similar to recent times as they let a Hall of Fame player slip away, as well as trading away the soul of the team. It took several years for them to become competitive again when Roger Clemens would arrive in the summer of 1984. I see that you made me read this for you for this, so I'm happy to do that service so you didn't have to actually recount it yourself.
It's some things in life you don't forget. And the following year I had an Expos hat, and I became a huge Andre Dawson fan, and my number has been 10 ever since. And I couldn't watch the Red Sox for at least 2 years after especially Freddie Lynn. Watching him go is painful as anything until Clemens left in '96.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah. Anyways, we're going to move on to John Rocker on December 22nd, 1999. And I'm just going to say that this interview is not PG-13. I'm not going to read everything he said, but it was. It's out there on the website if you want to read it. But on December 22nd, 1999, an interview with Sports Illustrated, Atlanta Braves pitcher John Rocker offends virtually every race and ethnic group in a hateful outburst. Community leaders, media, management, coaches, and teammates alike call for action to be taken against the left-hander who had 38 saves for the Braves this past season. The story was published on December 27th, 1999 in Sports Illustrated. Rocker made a number of allegations stemming from his experiences in New York City and answered a question whether he would ever play for the Yankees or the Mets. His immediate comment was he'd retire first. And it was the most hectic and nerve-wracking city. And then he starts talking about trains and taking, trains with all different types of people. And clearly Rocker couldn't handle that. He spoke about your beloved Mets and their fans. He talked about the fans spitting at you and throwing bottles at you. I've never seen that. I was to Shea several times. I'd never seen that, but it may happen. I don't know, but
who knows?
Yeah. So after the interview was concluded while driving to a speaking engagement in Atlanta. The reporter, Jeff Perlman, wrote that during the interview session, Rocker spat on a Georgia State Route 44 toll machine, and he mocked an Asian woman. Rocker also referred to teammate Randall Simmons. I'm not going to say it. Although Rocker later apologized after speaking with Braves legend and Hall of Famer Hank Aaron and the former Atlanta mayor, Congressman Andrew Young, he continued to make controversial remarks for his comments. Commissioner Bud Selig suspended Rocker without pay for the remainder of spring training in the first 28 games of the 2000 season, which he got reduced to 14 games.
I mean, there's really no words for that. He was a special kind of guy. That's we'll just leave it at that.
He could probably run for office now. So before we get to trivia, a quick word about Tom's Vintage Baseball. I like to say baseball is the only game where you can watch on the radio. Tom's Vintage Baseball is all about the voices of the game, announcers, game highlights, and interviews. Matt, who do you think is on Connie Mack's all-time team?
Connie Mack's all-time team?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably part of that $100,000 infield, right?
Well, the great thing is on Tom's Vintage Baseball, you can actually listen to him tell that story. So he has a 15-minute interview where he talks about his all-time greatest team. And then, of course, is Steve Carlton in the 67 World Series. I don't want to give away the trivia answer, but let's just say we have some great games from the 60s and early 70s as well. There's over 300 games from the 30s and 70s, hundreds of interviews and game highlights. The cool thing is you can take the recordings anywhere with you on the app. All the regular seasons are free to listen to, and we have a premium version as well. And there's a rewards program. So hope you go over there, check it out, listen to some old baseball games on tomsvintagebaseball.com. And Matt, how about that trivia?
All right, so one of the 8 original franchises started in Milwaukee for one season in 1901 and then moved to St. Louis in 1902, becoming the St. Louis Browns. Then it'll take them 42 years to make the World Series in 1944, and it'll take them another 22 years to make the World Series and win it all after 65 years, which was a sweep of the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1966. And on December 22nd, 1953, Jack Dunn III officially turned over the name Orioles to the St. Louis Browns, who were recently acquired in November 1953 by a syndicate of Baltimore business and civic interests led by attorney and civic activist Clarence Miles and Mayor Thomas D'Alessandro Jr. His family had successfully operated the International League Orioles franchise for years in Baltimore, Maryland. The original Orioles, an AL charter member franchise, eventually moved to New York in 1903 to eventually become the Highlanders, and then who we also know them a little bit better by as the Yankees. The move to Baltimore was ushered in with the arrival of Brooks Robinson in 1955. They experienced their greatest success from 1966 to 1983, when they made 6 World Series appearances and winning 3 of them in 66, 70, and 83. This era of the club featured many Hall of Famers who would later be inducted representing the Orioles, such as third baseman Brooke Robinson, outfielder Frank Robinson, starting pitcher Jim Palmer, first baseman Eddie Murray, shortstop Cal Ripken Jr., and manager Earl Weaver.
So that's a wrap for today's show. Matt, I hope you had some fun with us on the show today. And where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at mmusico8, and you can also check out MLB Daily Dingers at www.mlbdailydingers.com.
Easy to find me on tomsvintagebaseball.com. You can hit me up for a chat. And just remember, in the show notes, you can there's links to Matt's blog, tomsvintagebaseball.com, and Matt's Twitter's account. You can we appreciate you joining us today for Vintage Baseball Rewind. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Visit tomsvintagebaseball.com for more resources as well as access to episodes. We've got many episodes of this podcast on there and other stories on baseball history. And we'd love to get your feedback. Reach out to Matt on Twitter or me and tomsvintagebaseball.com. And until next time, we're out of here.